only predated in my Megazord collection by my 2009 Jungle Fury Megazord, my 2010 MMPR Megazord predating the luxury line, while still Hello there, heroes. I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to what might be considered something of a special report. I said in my recent What's Next for Power Rangers video that we were overdue for information on a contract renewal between Saban Brands and Nickelodeon, and information on the next season of Power Rangers. Oh, heroes, the floodgates have come off of their very hinges. Over the past week, 5 days, we got 4 major headlines concerning the Power Rangers franchise. And you could even technically split one of those in half and say 5, which gives you 1 for each day. And uniquely enough, it's possible that all 5 of those headlines, 4 or 5 headlines, tie together. Let's go ahead and take a look. The fun all started on Tuesday, February 13th, when we did finally get word of a contract extension between Saban Brands and Nickelodeon. Now, as I've said before, this is something of a mixed blessing. The show still has a home. The show will still continue to be produced and aired. Fans of this franchise can only consider that to be a positive thing. However, many of us, myself included, consider Nick a troublesome home for the franchise, with things like the required gigantic hiatus after 8 episodes, or the possibility of a forced comedic focus by Nickelodeon's request. However, the oddness began when we started to look at the length of the renewal. This deal runs through the year 2020. 1. Yes, this is a 3-year renewal instead of the standard 2-year renewal. Speculation began immediately on what this could mean. Was Q-Ranger going to get a 3-year adaptation instead of 2? Or maybe instead they finally convinced Nickelodeon to add more episodes to the season count, and thus we could go back to having single season adaptations. As of filming Saturday night, this question actually still has not been answered. Fast forward a little bit to Wednesday, February 14th, Valentine's Day. At Nick and More on Twitter noticed a very interesting little video had just been up and posted to the Saban Brands Vimeo page. It was titled something like Power Rangers franchise logo, new franchise logo, something like that. And it took the arched silver logo that we have come to know and love and replaced it with something brand new. It's a flat logo this time, still primarily silver in color, but using the yellow Mighty Morphin Power Rangers style Thunderbolt instead of the silver one that we'd gotten used to, and the bottom of the silver letters reflect a rainbow of colors, also thus reflecting the Power Rangers brand. It is a marked change from the old logo, but I definitely like it. I think it looks pretty good. Now, at first, it remained to be seen if this was actually legit, coming from a video that was put up and quickly put down, could have easily been fan-made, a hoax to generate views, at a time when it already seemed like the Power Rangers news cycle was starting to bubble up a little bit. However, just a few hours after the video went up, Saban Brands yanked it down, and then started using Digital Media Copyright Act, DMCA, complaints to legally force the thing to be taken down. It kind of reminded me of that line from Hamlet, from Shakespeare. The company doth protest too much, methinks. The next day, the Power Rangers official Twitter account tweeted out a video of this logo change, representing that it was legit. However, not even a franchise logo change could compare to the double whammy of headlines, this is the one I was talking about that was 2 in 1, that we got on Thursday and Friday. On Thursday, Saban Brands announced that Bandai of America, the only company that has ever made mainline Power Rangers toys in the 25-year history of the franchise, would no longer do so as of April 2019, as they would not be renewing their contract for the master toy license. The decision was said to be mutual in the official press releases. However, those informed of the decision said that it was basically, on the most part, Saban Brand's decision, a growing frustration with the lack of quality and effort in the toy line over the past few seasons. However, that lack of effort and quality, actually, which were often said to be cost-cutting, could be reflective of a notion from Bandai that indeed it was no longer in their best interest to produce the line anymore. Speculation abounded immediately after this announcement that all this meant was that Bandai had lost the master toy license, meaning that we would get a toy line that was actually spread across several different companies, kind of like your big toy lines with Marvel, Star Wars, etc., things like that, and there'd be no single company handling the mainline Power Rangers toys. I found that speculation extremely unusual, to think that a company like Saban Brands would get back an asset like their master toy license and not immediately award it to another company for the financial gains that could provide. And I turned out to be absolutely right about that, as on Friday, Hasbro announced at their annual investors meeting just before the New York Toy Fair that they have been awarded the master toy license for the Power Rangers franchise, meaning Hasbro will now be the primary company producing Power Rangers toys. This is obviously very exciting news for anyone like me who has been disappointed with what we've been getting out of Bandai of America lately. There are no guarantees, yes, that Hasbro will do any better, but they have all the incentive in the world to, besides just proving that they've earned the license and that Saban Brands made the right decision on what is probably at first a short-term contract. There's another little thing in the contract I'm going to touch on that will give them lots of incentive to do really well as well. Hasbro is primarily known for producing the Transformers toy line, though they have some other major lines, I will say. But the Transformers thing is something that gets me really excited, because it means that Hasbro is good at producing toys of large transforming robots. My favorite part of the Power Rangers toy line has always been the Zords. The Legacy line action figures, whatever Hasbro ends up calling them, should be boosted as well, because Hasbro has been really good with their adult-aimed, collector-aimed, slightly more expensive action figure line. They have one for both Star Wars and Marvel, and they're both really good with full paint, the right color paint, mind you, and accessories. I know, full paint and accessories at a $20 price point. Can you believe it? I have heard from some fans of other Hasbro series that their basic action figures are a little more hit or miss, but I mean, can it get any worse than the basic line action figures we've been getting from Bandai? So I dangled out a little thread there that I'll circle back to now, that there's another aspect of this deal between Saban Brands and Hasbro that would motivate Hasbro to do well on the toys, and there certainly is. It's a little something tucked into the deal and tucked into the press release about the deal that at first I only really saw on the more businessy sites to report the deal, though the news did spread slowly over time. When Hasbro takes over toy production for the Power Rangers franchise, there will be a certain period of time, that's completely nebulous, we have no idea how long that is, where the two sides will be able to initiate a process where Hasbro can complete the purchase of the entire Power Rangers franchise. I am not kidding. I will now read it to you directly from the release. In recognition of this investment, during a period of time after Hasbro becomes the master toy licensee, the arrangement between the parties provides Saban Brands and Hasbro with the opportunity to initiate Hasbro's purchase of the Power Rangers property. Yeah, that's a thing. Now, it's a little hard to tell whose motivations were a part of getting this included in the deal. At first, my initial reaction to it was that it was mainly a Hasbro thing, that they were looking for a major property that they could turn into the next Transformers, and thus in doing this wanted a way to get complete control of that franchise to take advantage of all the rewards that come with that. However, I've now also been hearing that there's kind of an interesting sentiment from Haim Saban himself. This isn't confirmed or anything. It may have been speculation. It may have been insider information. I'm just going to present it to you. The idea is that Haim Saban is actually losing confidence in his own company's ability to produce Power Rangers, whether that just be creative decisions or financial restraints or however. That he just doesn't think that his company has what it takes to make Power Rangers everything that it can be, and that he would rather sell the company to another company that actually cares about it and wants to see it succeed and become a giant franchise that has far more resources in order to make his little brainchild that he created from nothing and then rescued from the neglect of Disney, and allow that to become something amazing even if it's outside of his purview. That's an incredibly sort of cheesy but also admirable mindset if that is actually the motivation here. As I said, Hasbro may be just as interested in getting their entire hands around a franchise they own lock, stock, and barrel that could compete with Transformers and become a new Transformers. So I guess we'll see on that one. Now, in my first draft of this script, it was 3 or 4 major headlines instead of 4 or 5, and at this point I talked about how they all could tie together. I'm going to go ahead and still do that here because that information actually ties into the other major headline. So, how could these all tie together? Well, first of all, the new logo I think is rather obvious. You transition to a new toy maker, you make a new season, you have a brand new logo that you can place on that toy line, so it is distinguishable. You can tell Hasbro's Power Rangers toys more easily from Bandai's Power Rangers toys. Now, this is a logo for the entire franchise, as we've seen, and I am still getting to that. So it's not just the toys, it's anything Power Rangers, but there's that. But now, the actual toys themselves and the production of those toys. Bandai of America's contract with the Master Toy License runs through April of 2019, like I mentioned. If you think about it, this is not structured well to Saban's deal with Nickelodeon. Those deals have been expiring in even-numbered years, so of course Bandai of America had their contract expire in an odd-numbered year so that it didn't match up, and it made it a lot harder for Saban brands to make the decision that they just made. If the show was produced as it normally was, that would leave the toy line right in the middle of a 2-year adaptation as it switched from Bandai to Hasbro. The Power Rangers toy line tends to come out in 2 waves each year. A winter-fall wave sometime around November, and a spring-summer wave sometime around March or April. So, again, things being produced the way they were, you would have Bandai doing one half of a 2-season adaptation, and then Hasbro taking over for the second half. And that's not something that any of the 3 companies want. Now, some were speculating that that would mean that the 26th season of Power Rangers would be pushed back and we would have a longer off-season, starting the season in the fall of 2019. This would allow the Bandai contract to expire without a show to make toys for, and then Hasbro would start making toys in the fall of 2019 as the show released. However, I had a different theory about all this, and it ties in that other aspect. The 3-year contract renewal from Nickelodeon. I said that April 2019 start date for Hasbro left things right in the middle of a 2-year adaptation. So it's really interesting that we ended up getting 3 years from Nickelodeon instead of 2. What if they're planning to use 2019 as a transitionary season, giving us a single season adaptation to get through that gap? Well, whatever ends up happening with the toys, it seems like my theory was actually pretty close to the mark, as we got the headline that we are usually anticipating the most every 2 years, the one I usually dedicate its own video to, but in this news cycle came as just another surprise. Ironically enough, this headline actually dropped just about an hour or so after the latest episode of Power Rangers Super Ninja Steel finished airing, which deflated an already minimally inflated balloon with the quickness. Yes, heroes, we now know what the 26th season of Power Rangers is going to be, what it's going to be called, and perhaps most importantly to some, what it's going to be adapting. Ladies and gentlemen, the 26th season of Power Rangers will be called Power Rangers Beast Morphers. And as you can see here, yes, this season is the first use we have seen of the franchise's new logo as well. Set in the future, a secret agency combines a newly discovered substance called Morph-X with animal DNA to create the Power Rangers Beast Morphers team. The Rangers must fight off an evil sentient computer virus bent on taking over the source of all Ranger power, the Morphin Grid itself. Featuring never-before-seen leather suits and an all-new Beast-themed arsenal, including dynamic new Zords, fans should get ready for a season full of secret ops and more phenomenal fun. Wait, hang on just a second here. Leather suits, Beast-themed, secret ops. Could it actually be? Yes, heroes, it is. Beast Morphers is not adapting Q-Ranger. It's not adapting Zyuohger. I know some of you might have seen the name and thought it was Zyuohger, but it is not Zyuohger. We are instead getting the 2012-2013 Sentai Tokume Sentai Go Busters. This Sentai was initially skipped over in favor of adapting Kyoryuger into Dino Charge and Dino Supercharge. But now, for the first time in Power Rangers franchise history, we are circling back to a skipped Sentai. First things first, I do have to get a minor bit of personal irritation out of the way. If we include Go Busters and TokuChris, there were 4 Sentai that Saban Brands and Hasbro could have chosen for the next adaptation. 3 of those 4 Sentai included an Orange Ranger. They picked the only one that doesn't. Now, I could play rage at this, and there is a little bit of rage. This is a 2% rage, maybe 3% rage at this. But really, it's not a huge concern to me right at the moment for 2 reasons. One is that, quite honestly, I'm just too excited at the possibilities here. For me, Go Busters was the one Sentai that was completely off the table. Its monster suits are 6 years old, though I am going to explain a possibility about that in just a second. So I'm just still in a state of shock at this even being the actual decision. And the other is that, again, based on that 3-year TV deal with Nickelodeon, I feel like after the 2019 transition year, we're going to get back to normal and we'll have a 2-season adaptation of Q-Ranger. My Orange Ranger is coming. I just have to be a little patient. Just a little more patient. He's coming. Or she. He or she, either way. The Orange Ranger is coming. So, what's my initial reaction to this plot summary? Sounds a lot like Power Rangers RPM, doesn't it? And it just so happens that it will be written and showrun by the same man who left a nice big fat dangling plot thread at the end of Power Rangers RPM. Venjix survived, trapped inside of Scott's Morpher. The Beastmaster Rangers, who, by the way, may actually also be called the Grid Battlers. The term Grid Battlers was also trademarked in the same set of trademarks as Power Rangers Beastmasters, and Grid Battlers, GB, would explain the GB that's plastered all over their suits and gear. Whatever they're called, what are they battling? An evil, sentient computer virus. Also, there's a very simple statement of continuity tucked in there that just felt really good for fans like me who have been frustrated by a lack of continuity in the Neo Saban era. The source of all Ranger power, the Morphin Grid. Believe it or not, Beastmasters is going to be the first season of Power Rangers since RPM to make any sort of a reference to the Morphing Grid, and it'll be the first season since Power Rangers Jungle Fury to actually use the name Morphing Grid. And it says that the Morphing Grid is the source of all Ranger power. That already sounds like it's talking about more than just the Beastmaster Grid Battlers. So overall, how do I feel about this? I am 150% on board. A sequel season to RPM, or just another season like RPM? So back in that first draft of this script that I mentioned earlier, I had said, before we knew what the next season was going to be, that if they were going to do a single season adaptation, that even Go Busters was on the table. Yes, Go Busters monster suits are 6 years old. However, you only need to find about 20 to 22 good ones, and that's if you don't do any original villains. That reduces that need even more. As a matter of fact, the primarily seen and active villains of Go Busters are humans, so you're going to have to replace them anyway. However, they do actually have monster suits that were probably better taken care of than the Monster of the Day suits. You could just use those instead in some original footage. And if you throw in some 2-part episodes, you need even less monster suits. An interesting aspect to me about all this is that the reason I had that theory of doing a single season adaptation was as a way of running out Bandai's contract. They would, whether they wanted to or not, it is a contract, legally binding, produce a toy line for one last season that we now know would be Power Rangers Beast Morphers, and then we'd move on to Hasbro. However, Hasbro themselves nipped that idea in the bud on Saturday at Toy Fair when they announced that they are going to be handling the Beast Morphers toy line. To me, unfortunately, that suggests that we're going to have a delay to the start of Beast Morphers, not at the start of the year, but probably closer to the end of it, actually, either sometime around April or sometime later in the fall, especially. I just don't see a franchise that exists to sell toys airing a show from January to April without having any toys to sell. The only reason that I don't out and out say that my theory is now that they're going to shift the date for Beast Morphers is that I'm not really sure that's something that Nick will be into. Nick and Power Rangers have operated on a very consistent schedule in their time, starting the season in January, ending the season in November or December, and I'm not sure how interested Nick is in changing that. I actually tried looking up the schedules, the times that episodes have come out for a couple of other Nickelodeon shows, Henry Danger and the Thundermans, and the airing schedule for both of those shows have been incredibly erratic, some seasons taking over a full calendar year to actually air. So really, I don't have any sort of a grasp on what kind of a calendar Nickelodeon would accept for Beastmasters. There are still significant portions of the story that are wait and see. I want to wrap up this video, as silly as it might kind of sound, by actually eulogizing Bandai of America's relationship with Power Rangers. Besides the old logo, the only thing we're actually losing here is that relationship, and even with what's happened lately, it is truly bittersweet to see that relationship come to the end. Think of it like this. Think of it as somebody getting married to their high school sweetheart right out of high school, only relationship they've ever been in. They're married for 25 years, and then they end up getting a divorce. There's probably good reasons if the marriage is ending after that long, but they stayed together for 25 years. There's a lot of good to go with the bad. And for the record, folks, Bandai isn't actually going anywhere. It was included in the release that Bandai of Japan is still going to make Super Sentai toys. They still have that license with Toei. And it's not like Bandai of America is just going to shut down without the Power Rangers license. That being said, I did take a look at their other brands, and it seems to me like the biggest thing that they have besides Power Rangers is Dragon Ball Z Super. So, okay, maybe it'll be a little damaging. However, I have an entire shelf of Megazords sitting right here. You can't see it, it's just off screen for you, but right here. And every single one of those Megazords was made by Bandai of America. Actually, I need to get on putting up some more shelves. I think I'm going to put them right here behind me, actually, because I have more stuff in box that is waiting for a place to go from Bandai of America. If you are a Power Rangers fan, Bandai has been a part of your life for better or for worse, even if you've never bought a single Power Rangers toy. Bandai of America is the reason that Forever Red got finished and aired. Bandai of America may have helped partially fund Power Rangers RPM. Bandai has really made some fantastic Power Rangers toys. I can't really show these to you right now because they're over on that shelf and kind of dusty and kind of stuck because I'm rearranging the way I display my Power Rangers toys. But my Legacy Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Morpher is a fantastic piece. I still love that thing. You should try to pick one up if you don't have it, because it is a quality collector's item. And only predated in my Megazord collection by my 2009 Jungle Fury Megazord, the 2010 Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Megazord, which predates the Legacy line, is still a quality product on its own right. Not Legacy line quality, of course, but it was still a pretty well put together and painted / stickered Megazord. For a while, it was really great to have Bandai of America as the holder of the Master Toy license. However, the bloom has definitely come off the rose, and especially lately. I think the issue started when Bandai of America seemed to quietly abandon the Legacy Megazord line. Fans have been clamoring, begging to give Bandai of America their money for the Legacy Shogun Megazord. And the way I saw it, Bandai of America attended convention after convention after convention without giving fans any solid answers on when that was coming out. And then the action figures, of course, had their own issues. First of all, we had a back and forth within Bandai itself, conflicting answers on whether or not they were going to sell female Power Rangers action figures. And that issue is apparently carrying on even now, as it looks like the Legacy Pink and Yellow Zeo Rangers are GameStop exclusives? But if there is one magnified representative of the fans' issues with Bandai of America as of late, it is that champion of ice cream, that defender of candy dishes in the homes of grandparents across this fine nation of ours, the Butterscotch Zeo Ranger. To badly paint the action figures and Zords that we get for the show line, that's one thing. Kids won't notice, though I think they do. And the adult fans are more interested in the nostalgia line toys than in the current show line toys. The main example of that being just how upset many fans got when they heard that Ninja Steel was getting Legacy figures. But to start cutting corners in the figure line that is intended for older fans willing to spend more money, that just shows a serious lack of effort and faith in the product. Putting out a figure that so badly missed what the prototype images looked like, and then standing by that. Yes, on Twitter I saw a user that had an interesting idea and contacted Bandai of America's repair team claiming that their gold Zeo figure was missing paint. After they clarified to them that it was missing the gold paint that it's supposed to come with, the repair team contacted them back and basically said, hey, sometimes the final product doesn't match the prototype. Sorry. That, I think, really had to be the last straw, and it seems like it was, as angry fans went to Saban Brands. For some reason I don't really understand. The night I wrote the first draft, actually, I saw somebody say to me that we should be blaming Saban Brands for the cheap products that Bandai of America was putting out. Okay. Complaining about the color of the figure, Saban Brands goes to Bandai and says, hey, what's the deal? And Bandai of America basically goes, hey, listen, the toys aren't selling. It's not like gold paint is cheap. But now, we have reached the dawning of a new age. Or, well, actually, this is really more like sunset on the old age. The rest of this year and the first few months of 2019 are going to be nighttime, seeing as we may not even have any Power Rangers toys until April 2019 when Hasbro takes over. I am really hopeful that that's not the case and that they find a way for Beast Morphers to start in January and somehow have toys for it right off the bat. But in the end, we really just have to wait and see what happens. So that about covers it. I hope that I summed up the news well enough and was succinct enough. I'm not really ever succinct, but succinct enough in my opinions on what all of this could possibly mean and what I think of what's happened so far. I do want to take this opportunity to toss out some props to two individuals who I thought really showed their stuff during this news cycle. The first is at TokuChris on Twitter. Basically, all of the news that I got on everything that happened came through him in one way or another. He has been right on top of this, and other than the fact that he likes to tease a little bit, which I think any of us would, being in the position to get information like he is, He has provided a lot of information, and he and I have even had some discussions on what certain revelations could mean, and he seems like a pretty cool guy. So if you want to keep up on this rebranding, basically, of the Power Rangers franchise in the next few years, pretty much up to the second, follow at TokuChris on Twitter. The second is someone that I've actually already mentioned on this channel before, Ranger Liz, the Cassidy Cornell of the Power Rangers franchise. This poor girl has been trying her best, and I think succeeding, at balancing her family and reporting on a Power Rangers news cycle that has suddenly gone on a sugar rush. Again, I think she has succeeded well in it. She's been getting those videos out. She is really the reporter of the Power Rangers franchise. Like I said, I don't really report news up to the second. I'm more of a reviewer. As a matter of fact, even with breaking news like this, I'm more reviewing the news, if you think about it, than actually breaking it. She is the reporter of the Power Rangers franchise, among some other people, but I think she has really stepped into that mantle quite well. So, if you want to follow the reporter of the Power Rangers franchise, subscribe to her YouTube, follow her on Twitter. Links should be below for that. If not, somebody remind me. Liz, you can remind me if you want. And just keep yourself in the know. That is going to do it for this Orange Ranger video special report. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to leave your comments on what you think of all this news in the comments down below. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and get notified. As for me, I am now immediately back to work on Super Ninja Steel and catching up Hyperforce, so I will just say, may the power protect you. I'll talk about that when the time comes. So, they may tie together. Hello there, heroes. I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to what you might be able to consider the... Over the past week, in my recent That's how it's going to be. All right. At Nick and More on Twitter noticed an interesting little video just up and posted to Saban Brand's Twitter account. No, to their Vimeo page. A flat logo, still mostly in silver, but now using the yellow Mighty Morphin Power Rangers lightning bolt instead of the silver one, again, that we had come to know. Yep. And then started issuing... All right, the cats are... Well, you decided not to fight, so I didn't have to stop. Thank you, I guess. Now, at first, it remained to be seen if it would fucking. All right. No. It's fine. A flat logo, still mostly in silver, but now using the yellow Mighty Morphin Power Rangers style Thunderbolt. It's a lightning bolt fart. It's definitely a marked change from the old logo, but I still like it. I think it looks really good. Did I mention, by the way? Oh. Okay. Good to know. Let's see if we can get this bad boy to double digits. I still think it looks really good. Kick my brain to soup. The only company that has ever made Power Rangers toys in the 25-year history, but not even a franchise logo change, could compare to the two headlines in one. This is the one I was referencing that you can split. This is obviously very exciting news that would not only be good, is proven good at creating and building those types of franchises, but actually, yeah, now in my first draft of this script, there was actually 3 major headlines instead of 4 or 5, and then starting the 26th season with a fall wave of toys from Hasbro. However, as that 4th headline, the biggest one, I think perhaps, Hasbro might be bigger. But in this particular news cycle, it only ranks 2nd to other major news happening. That's an incredibly clunky sentence. As the headline that we're usually most anticipating every year, the one that I usually dedicate its own, not every finally hit on Saturday. We now can look at the TV and stare at it. Because the headline that we usually anticipate more than anything else every 2 years, life is a cycle of hatred and anger and sadness and terrible, terrible pain. just about an hour or so after the latest episode of Power Rangers Super Ninja Steel had finished airing. Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, the 26th season of Power Rangers will be called Power Rangers Beast Morphers. Isn't that nice? Set in the future, a secret agency combines a newly discovered substance called Morph-X with animal DNA to create the the Morphin Grid itself, featuring oh god. Set in the future, a secret agency combines a newly discovered substance called Morph-X with animal DNA to create the Power Rangers. Why does it sound like I'm saying DNA? Believe it or not, and will be the first since Power Rangers Jungle Fury to actually use the name Morphin Grid. And will be the first since Power Rangers Jungle Fury to actually use the name Morphin Grid. And it notes that the grid is the source of all Ranger power. On Saturday at the Toy Fair, Hasbro announced that they... Oh yeah, so I didn't do that right at all. Now, the interesting thing about all this is the single main reason that they are going to be handling the Beastmasters. The Beastmasters. I knew that was going to happen eventually. However, Hasbro nipped that idea in the bud today when they announced that they are I said today. A franchise that exists to sell... The only reason that I don't out and out say that it's my theory that they're going to shift the starting date for Beastmasters, the 2010 Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Megazord, while not part of gosh darning friggin' darn it is that defender of ice cream, the champion of the candy dish. I am going to take this opportunity to